Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table podcast with PJ and Mike. Now, please find yourself a seat at their table.
Hey kids, I'm Mike.
I'm PJ.
And today, you guys, we have a special topic, maybe even an interview. We're going to be talking about, how to start your own business and, kind of the steps of getting one started and, how to pick your goals, how to measure them. And hopefully some of our longtime listeners are aware, PJ, my other half, has opened up his own comic book toy store. And the other day, he and I were talking, and he was just, communicating with me just like the process of this. And it's just, I think, something that anyone can relate to. It doesn't have to be opening a comic book store. It could be if you're opening a restaurant, or if you even want to, some of these elements of if you want to, try to, like what we're trying to do is try to make at least a side hustle with our podcast, hopefully in the future. Or, if you want to be in a band, like how do you turn things into a profit? How do you turn this thing that's a hobby into generating money? So, PJ, I guess my first question is, and we always start things off with a childhood memory. So this might not be a memory, but what kind of inspired you to start your business? What's kind of, what was the spark? Mm-hmm.
It kind of is a childhood memory.
Okay.
It kind of is because, so because you've known me for a million years, right? So I'm always a comic book nerd. Like from when we were kids, from when we first met in like third grade, I've always been a comic book kid. So it goes back to where I used to buy comic books from, right? Mm-hmm. Which was, and I actually spoke about this on one of my videos on YouTube when I was walking around the neighborhood, and I kind of stopped in front of where I used to buy comic books from. It was a stationery store, and they just had a rack of comic books, and it was right down the block from my house. So, my dad would take me on like a weekend. Maybe I'd pick up like one comic book. I had no idea that comic book stores existed. I just knew that I liked superheroes, and they had a rack of comic books at the stationery store. And then, I got a little bit older, and I found it wasn't really a comic book store. For people that live locally and are our age or older, probably not younger so much, but there was a hardware store called Pergaments.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And if you remember downstairs in Pergaments, you would go down like the escalator, and on one side there was this very weird like alcove of two stores, right? Mm-hmm. And one was a barber shop, and on the other side of the escalator was like a coin store, like a stamps and coins kind of store. Mm-hmm. And they had a couple of more racks of comic books than the store down block from my house had. So I'm like, this is even better because now this place has cards. They have some, they have some comic books. You could see a little bit more, had more variety. It wasn't just like Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. Now you could get into not super deep cuts, but they might have, more X-Men stuff or more Aquaman, just like Green Lantern, not just like the big ones like Superman and Batman. So now I'm really into it, right? So now I'm learning about all these new comic book characters. And I remember I was like reading the books, right? And the next chapter was in a completely different book. And I'm like, well, how do I find this book? I've never seen this anywhere. And then I found a comic book store called Heroes World.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For Heroes World, by the Nassau Mall. For anyone, again, any local people that are around our age, they'll probably remember it. And that was the first real comic book store I went into, was Heroes World. And I loved it because they had every comic book, all these toys. I was in like a dream world. Like, I'm like, I can't believe something this awesome exists. I want to be in a comic book store for the rest of my life. So it started back then. And I knew I wanted to work in a comic book store. And then, I wound up finding more comic book stores and I would frequent the same ones over and over and really get into comic book culture. But from when I was a kid, I was always like, man, I would love to be the comic book guy that sits behind the counter and talks about comics all day. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, the last couple of years, whether it's because working in the corporate world is not fun,
right?
Started thinking like I want to do more stuff for myself. And the things I like the most are comic books, movies, writing, everything that involves like storytelling.
Right.
So, for me, it was like, well, if I've always wanted to be in a comic book store and I love comic book stores, it's a lot easier for me to open a comic book store than it is to make a movie.
Right.
And it just is. But also, for as much as I love movies, I love comic books more, and I just always wanted to be the comic book guy, and I got to a place in life where I could try it out. So that's why. So it is a childhood memory. That's why I'm here. Like that's why I'm doing this. It's really living out a childhood dream.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love that. And PJ, I always share this. I think I shared it once before, maybe on our first episode. But you actually gave me 2 comic books to kind of get me started because I want to get into it, like in whatever middle school, somewhere around there. I still have them. And you told me, you referred me, you're like, yo, go to Pergament, and that's where I got the bulk of my collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course I went to Heroes World and Nassau Mall, so I got a lot of my X-Men trading cards there. I got my X-Men toys there, and I actually got a lot of Darkwing Duck toys there.
Yeah.
I rounded in them out. I got what was it, Honker, right? Or is the girl, Darkwing Duck's daughter? Can't remember their characters' names, but Launchpad McQuack.
Like Gosselin?
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. So on the wall behind me, you won't be able to see it from this picture, but you can see that I have some comic books, like my wall books. There's a Darkwing Duck book on this wall, and it's up there. One, because it's worth a couple of bucks, but 2, it's they paid homage to an old Batman cover with I think it was it's RoboDuck and Darkwing, but they're in the Batman and Robin pose, and I just thought it was such an awesome book, so it's on the wall. So
nice, yeah. I love it. Mm-hmm. So PJ, I guess I think even for myself, like it's like, okay, I have a dream, I have an idea. What is like step 1? Do you go to the bank? Do you check your own bank account? Like, what's like what's like, okay, pen and paper. What's step 1?
Well, so for me, in the business that I'm opening, step 1 is make sure you have an interest in something like this, right? Like I shouldn't open something like that I have no interest in, because then how do you run a business that you don't understand? Like I understand the business of comic books a little bit because I've been involved.
Yes.
But I think step 1, if you're opening a business, like make sure you have the knowledge to do it, at least some. You're not going to know all the ins and outs, but make sure you have an idea, and also like if you don't have a full idea, make sure you know someone you can ask. So the comic store I used to go to, after I kind of grew out of Pergament and Heroes World closed up, the comic book store I went to was from probably the latter half of middle school through a couple of years ago when the shop closed down. Right. And I became very friendly with everyone who works there because I was there at least once a week, maybe more. So I became friends with these people, and then their shop closed down. But I had someone to reach out to with knowledge that could kind of say, well, these are some of the things that you should be aware of. Right. So like, for instance, I'll give it for instance, like I know the books I like, and I could fill up a shelf with all the new comic books that I would read, but that doesn't mean other people are going to read them. So just because I like it doesn't mean everyone will. So like some of the advice is make sure you diversify what you have on the shelf. You might like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and X-Men, but maybe someone else likes, and I don't like the X-Men, by the way. I just use them as an example because everyone knows who they are. I actually hate the X-Men. But the point is, like, I hate them, but everyone else doesn't. Make sure you have that full line of X-Men book. Don't do it based on your personality, right? Understand that someone likes Superman, someone likes Spawn, someone likes some of these second tier, maybe not big characters, but they'll come in week after week to buy the book. So be diverse and, things like that, and just how to set pricing and what's fair and what's not fair. Having someone that was able to like kind of walk me through that.
Yeah. Like kind of mentor you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was step 1. Like, hey, I have this idea. I have the stock already. Like I know I have the merchandise. So what's the next step? And having someone walk me through it was kind of a big help. Right. That's kind of where I would say my first step was, let me try and get some insight before I jump into something that's very, very niche.
Yeah. I like that. I like how you said too about knowing the business in itself. So like if you're going to, let's say your dream is to own a bakery, have a knowledge of baking. Really,
exactly.
Because some people are like, oh, I'd love to own my own restaurant, but do you really know how, you're a part chef or something, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
So that's a great point, man. Yeah, that's a really good point. Totally makes sense. Okay, so that's step 1, and then I guess when you have, what would be step 2? For you.
For me, all right. So what step 2 should have been for me.
Okay. In retrospect, interesting. The learning, you only get certain times. Only get to learn things once the first time.
I should have went to Jen. For listeners who don't know, Jen's my wife. And I probably should have been like, "Hey, I'm thinking about opening a business.
Right.
What do you think about this idea?" I got so wrapped up in it that I just plowed through full steam ahead and
Right.
really didn't talk to the fact that I was about to pull the trigger on this.
Yeah.
Step two should be like go over if you have someone else that like is in your life that you have a responsibility with, you should probably
Yeah.
go over that with them.
Right.
Because it's a big financial
Of course.
a big financial commitment to open a business. So that should have been step two. Assuming you've done that, it's really the finance piece. Like, can you afford to lay out the amount of money you need to lay out up front? Like, how much money is it going to cost? How much is rent? How much is, an electric bill going to be?
Yeah.
So like just kind of laying out, like, do I have the funding to set up this business? Because you kind of got to know you're going to lose money the first couple of years. You're not going to.
Yeah.
Very rare, right? So that's like the first thing is financial stuff. Like, can I afford to do this? Do I have the means to operate this business and without making a huge amount of money at first? Can I lay out the money? That was kind of my second step, is to see if I could pull it off.
Yeah. I think what you said was clutch too. Just like, to be successful at anything in life, you need support. You know what I mean? And just also getting, like you said, especially if you're in a marriage or any kind of relationship or a business partnership, whatever it is, you want someone to invite them into, whatever it is, you got to be on the same page because it'll make things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone is not just invested, financially, also emotionally invested, where your wife can be like, okay, I'm ready to do this journey with you, or your parents, or whatever the hell it is,
And then from there, it's trying to figure out how to start the business.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that goes into it that I didn't know until I started looking. I don't know all the different laws and things like that. There are certain laws that have to be followed. So I actually used a service that set up the LLC for me. We went with an LLC for the store because that made the most sense for a small business like this, especially to start out. Because you could be a limited liability corporation, a sole proprietorship, an S corp. There's so many different like structures for business. You really need to know which is the best fit for you. And I went through an agency called Northwest. But there's a bunch of agencies out there. Like LegalZoom is one that does it. I know a lot of people probably heard of LegalZoom.
Yep.
There's a bunch, and they kind of walk you through the process, and it's worth giving them the money if you don't really know what you're doing, because it helps. I can deal with people at any time. But that's really the first thing. Like, I didn't know, in order to set up a business in New York, you have to publish in a newspaper or a periodical that you're opening a business. So and if you don't do that, you can't get the business licenses that you need.
Huh?
I would have had no idea.
Right. Yeah. I would never know that. Yeah.
Right. So they kind of take the lead on that and set everything up and help you move that process so that you can publish in the newspaper. And it's like there's like a legal notices section in the newspaper that no one ever reads because no one cares.
Right.
But if you're not in there consecutive weeks or consecutive months, whatever it is, you don't get the papers and the documents you need. So like I would say, unless like you're some legal savant or something that knows all of this, or unless you have someone in your life that knows all of this.
Yes.
That's why I use the agency, but they set everything up for you, which makes it a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just because I remember when you and I were talking, I know this is not political, but like they always like small businesses need a head start and all these other kind of things. Dude, you were telling me all these little things that you said. I didn't like just these little things you said, like having basically like an ad in the newspaper that you're opening a business, and just these other technical things of just you can kind of share more about, like having the sign, the window graphic,
Right. That was a big one. I thought you could just go and get a sign. The town has to give you a permit for the sign. And then if you want to put a window graphic, at least where we are in the town of Hempstead, there's you can only have it cover a certain percentage of your window. So if you were to get a window graphic that covers too much and the town sees it, they can fine you. If you get a sign that they don't approve of or is not the right size, like all of this stuff, they can or if you put the sign up and don't get the permit, they'll charge you hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to it's like a whole thing. Like there's so many little intricacies that you'd have no idea about.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like it's kind of like maybe with your cell phone or like these hidden fees.
Yeah.
you know, So it can be really tricky. And like, like this is, like I said, this isn't me like standing on my soapbox, but it's witnessing, as a bystander, you starting this business, you telling me these things. It's like, oh my God, starting your own business, just to start up is like, wow, that in itself is a journey. That in itself is like
so much. I say it's a lot of work, and
yeah,
it wasn't like it was the most time consuming work, but it's just so many little things that, all right,
yeah,
well, you can't do the next step until you wait a week for this to complete and you get the
yeah,
paperwork. And then the state's not looking to move fast on anything. So now you're like, all right, I can't go to the next step until I get this license. And then I have to wait for this license so I can do this and you can do that. And it just takes so much time. That's why we started in May or June. I started this, and we're hoping to open in a week or two. It's October. It takes 5 months, 4 months to get to a point where you can even open it. It's very time consuming. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, because on my end, like, I gotta get it done, and then I get it done, but nobody else is as interested in me opening as I am.
Right. Yeah, and I can only like just empathize and put myself in other people's shoes when they start their own like restaurants, or even they start like I know people who start their own like food truck. You know what I mean? Like it could be like taco truck. I can just imagine that. I'm sure the truck has to have certain sanitation. You don't have to worry about sanitation, right? Or anything.
But
I mean, for us, you don't want any.
Well, it's funny you talk about sanitation. I'm responsible for my own garbage removal.
Oh,
we have a dumpster here, and I can use the dumpster or whatever. But like, they're not coming around and picking my garbage up or anything like that. Like little things like that. Like you take it for granted that like when you're at your house, you can take the garbage to the curb and the garbage man picks it up.
Yeah.
Like you have to know that you have to find a way to get your garbage to the dump. Like no one's picking it up.
Right.
That's on me to find a way. So when I have a bunch of garbage, I got to load it up into the back of the truck. I got to drive to a dumpster, put it in the dumpster.
Right.
Like even just small things like that no one would think of. Like, I mean, who would think of how do I get rid of the garbage?
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. The operations of it. Yeah. So I can know my heart goes out to those who are just, I really have the utmost respect for you and anyone else who's really starting a business. It's just like, it's a lot of work, but it's, hey, what do they say? Bigger the risk, bigger the reward kind of thing. So you got to.
And I mean, and you've been in the store before we had anything in it. You were here sorting comic books with me. And
yeah.
I mean, you saw the amount of stuff that it takes to just even open this. Like just sorting through the books took forever in this comic book store. And I was pretty organized at my books since I was a kid. For the most part, these books are in somewhat of an order, but I have 40,000, 30,000, whatever, thousands and thousands, and just sitting on it that had to get put in a new order. It took forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can't even, like once you get to the part where you can even start working in the store, that's a whole other ball game. Like you get through all the legal mumbo jumbo, and then you're like, oh my God, I got to do something with the store.
Right. Yeah. And now that becomes to operations. We're actually kind of a good segue, because I remember you were sharing with me just like little things too. Like you said, you don't think about throwing out the garbage. Then you were making me laugh. You're like, dude, I had to get like basically like an iPad. Registers are different now. You know what I mean? So now we have iPads and this new technology. And I think you were kind of sharing like, okay, first you buy like, I'm assuming I don't think you use the one you use at home while you're on the toilet, but you probably most likely bought a new one, right? Or some kind of tablet, right?
Yeah.
And then also comes with that is you have to buy the software you were telling me about.
Exactly. Well, that's what it is. So we're doing this on the cheap because like some of these things cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month to use a software service. I'm like, I'll be in debt before I even make a sale because I got to pay $500 a month to use the register. Right. So they have these elaborate systems, and you're like, all right, well, I have to buy an iPad. Okay, well, then I got to buy a cash register. Okay, well, now I got to buy the software. Okay, now the software is a monthly fee. Okay, but this software doesn't handle the credit cards. Now I got to get a credit card reader. Okay, now I got to set up the account from the credit cards because I got to pay 3.5% when someone pays a credit card. There's all these small things. And I say this as someone who really has always spent a lot of money and a lot of time at small businesses.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I've always gone to comic book stores, and that's a small business. Like I if you go to like those vintage record stores, I'm sure you've gone to them, right? Yeah, like I've gone to them. These are small businesses, and you try and support these businesses, even restaurants, really.
Right.
And, if you don't want to go to a chain, it's a small business. They say it's small business is the backbone of America, right?
Yep.
They say that, and I believe that to be true, but they don't make it easy. If it's the backbone of America, like give us a freaking back brace for some support, man. Like, it's difficult. So, but yeah, we bought an iPad. We actually found a free software to use. Actually, a friend of ours who's going to be on the show is actually where I got the idea from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I guess he's going to be on the show. I can say who it is. Rossi actually gave me the idea. And he was like, hey, we use this where I am, and maybe you should look into it. And it actually wound up being very helpful information. So
fantastic.
He saved me a tremendous amount of money if
Right.
I didn't know that from him. But yeah,
Right.
it's
And I didn't even know. I don't know if this is just a new thing where I guess before iPads and all this kind of stuff. Like, did you have to pay for a service to run your register? Like back. I'm talking about like 20 years ago, 2000, where you had a
it was just like
it's
like a big calculator.
Yeah, exactly. Now, wow, that's incredible.
So, but you could try and get like an old register. They still sell them, but then like, here's my thing, and this is totally on me, right?
Right. Yeah.
I was gonna get an old school register and just throw it behind the counter and be like, that's fine, we can type it in. But
Right.
I don't know if it makes a difference to the general population.
Right.
But for me personally, when I walk into like a store and they have a really cool modern looking just setup,
Right.
I feel like, oh, this place is really cool. I want to come back.
No, I definitely think that's a part of the aesthetic, without a doubt. No, absolutely. I think that's a part. I think it sounds. I think human behavior. You know what I mean? We're attracted to shiny things.
Exactly.
So I think that would make sense. I get that. Yeah, you want to create an ambiance. You want to have a sense of scale.
Right.
So
exactly.
Somewhat of my last question. I want to get into some other things about just business in general. What's your expectations? How about that? Like, what's your expectations for this? What are you looking to? Is it a certain number? Is it a certain thing?
So my hope is to not go bankrupt,
right,
and not lose all of my life savings.
Right.
That's my hope. My expectation is that within 2 to 3 years, I break even.
Right.
My goal is that I'm not going to make $1 billion a year running a comic book store.
Right.
I may not actually be able to quit my corporate America job. Maybe I'll get that lucky. Maybe I won't. But if I can operate the store, make a couple extra bucks on the side, a little extra scratch, that's what I want out of it. Because for me, this is a passion project more than it is a career choice.
Yes.
Right? So if I can operate the store and afford to pay the rent, pay the bills, buy the merchandise, make a couple extra bucks out of it, that's all I'm looking for. And this might sound, I don't know, maybe it sounds corny or whatever, but going to the comic book store was a big part of my life for a very, very long time. And I don't know if kids are as big into comic books today as they were when we were kids, right? I don't know if they are, but I mean, when I would go into the comic book store, the comic book store I used to go to was on Hempstead Turnpike. It was I would walk home from school, from Division, and walk through the comic book store. You know what I mean? Like, and just spend time in there, maybe buy a couple of books with my lunch money if I skipped lunch so I could buy the new book that was coming out or whatever. And it was just like a huge, huge part of just me becoming like an adult in a way. I went to the store. Everywhere else I was a kid, but I went to a store and people there like, yeah, maybe you're 15, maybe you're 16, but you can talk to us about everything in this store with as much knowledge as we have about these superheroes. And, you start interacting in a different way with different people. Like, teachers don't, maybe it's different today. Teachers didn't treat us like adults.
Right.
Your parents don't treat you like an adult. You're a kid. But there was like, oh, these people, despite the fact that some of these people are 10, 20, 30 years my senior, they didn't treat you like a kid. If you could pay your bill, you were just like any other customer. And that was like a big thing for me, like going in there and having like
treated like an equal.
Like an equal. I felt that was a big thing for me. And also it's like, I mean, for me, comic books weren't popular when we were kids. Like, like kids read them and stuff, but it wasn't like the biggest thing in the world. There were no Marvel movies making $16 billion when they come out in the first weekend. It was kind of like if you were a comic book nerd and you had comic book nerd friends, you had someone to talk to this stuff about.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of missing now. I kind of, as a comic book guy, I like the movies. I like the books better.
Right.
Always for me, and I don't think there's anywhere for anybody to go to talk about the stuff they love. You need a place to go that's like an outlet for your passion and stuff. And I don't know. I just feel like if a person walks into a comic book store and they pick up something that they're super interested in,
right,
it could be the most random character. It could, you know what I mean? It could be something no one's ever heard of. One of my favorite superheroes is the Question. Most people probably don't know who the Question even is. But you walk into this place and a character that you resonate with, a character that you just love reading about, that you read their book changes your whole day. And there's no one in the world you can talk to about it because there's only one store that has someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I don't know. I don't know if I'm articulating my point clear enough, but for me that was such a big thing to have someone that.
Yeah.
I mean, because even us, like we've known each other for our entire lives.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to have a conversation about the Question.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
No, of course. Yeah.
You need someone that you can talk to about things that you feel so strongly about, and I think a comic book store is just a perfect place for that.
Yeah, and I think that magic also applies for, like, I'm sure that we have any musicians, like when you go into a Guitar Center, a Sam Ash, there's just a wall of guitars, or go into the drum room, you see all these like beautiful drum kits, and you can just go up to someone and be like, I remember my brother would pick up like an instruction video, and the guy at the counter, you could just, just start, just conversating about it, or even just like I used to go to the video game store. I think you remember old school, like going to Microplay or Funko Land.
Yeah,
and you just go in there. It's just like this, like, hanging out with other folks, man. It's like this. It's like a, it's like it's like that same feeling when you go to a concert. There's like this feeling of just like you're all part of the same family, all passionate about the same thing, this artist. So going to a store feels like that,
Yeah, and especially in a store like this, or like you said, a music store.
Yeah,
like Monster Music or something like that, especially like a smaller one where some of these bigger stores are like a Target, right? Or just any chain store that just has an employee. It just has an employee putting stuff on a shelf that can tell you where something is, but you can't have a conversation. It's not the same. You know what I mean? You go to like a mom and pop shop, the person that's working there loves that they're there, or they wouldn't do it.
Right.
It's just different. It's just a different feeling.
Yeah. I guess the next thing I kind of want to talk about, and I guess this is my, I guess I do this actually with my patients or my clients. So it's called, but you can use this for anything. It's called SMART goals. You might have heard it before.
We use them at my real job.
Yeah. Okay. So, so folks at home, you can use this if you want to, apply towards like starting your own business, or maybe you want to start a band. You're like, okay, how do we get this to a place where we're getting gigs? Maybe you want to be a cover band, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. You have to become world famous, right? You want to somehow make this into this goal become a reality, or even something can be personal goals, like you want to get in shape, or you want to eat healthier, or you want to learn how to ride a bike. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So you think of the word SMART, okay? And each letter corresponds to something, okay? So the S in SMART stands for specific, right? Which is make your goals very specific and narrow. Okay, so that means we'll use a personal goal for a second. So like I want to lose weight. Okay, that's good. Okay, but be more specific. I want to be
how much.
Right. Exactly.
You want to lose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
right. Exactly.
And it's not just do you want to lose 5 pounds, or is it I want to lose 5 pounds of weight by a specific day.
Right. Yeah. Or some of my patients, they say like you, PJ, I want to start a business. Okay. Oh my God. Then my next question is, okay, what business?
Right. Exactly.
Be specific. That's great. That's great. But
everyone wants to start a business. But
right.
Exactly.
So, right. But when you have a more specific goal, you're more likely to achieve it. The M stands for measurables. That means, can you measure your goal? So we go back to like losing weight. Okay. I want to, like, you can track your weight. You go on a scale, right? You can lose that, right? Or, maybe you're playing an instrument, right? All of a sudden you like guitar, okay? the way I was taught, you learn one string at a time. Actually, you don't learn all six at once. That's how I was taught, one string at a time. So you might be able to measure. Okay, week one, I spend 1 week learning one string E. The next week B, G. 6 weeks later, okay, you learn them all, right? You're measuring. Okay. A is achievable, or which I think is probably I think the most important one is.
Yeah.
Is
Because people
this,
have illusions that they're going to do
yes.
something. If I would come into this, be like, I'm going to open a comic book store and become a millionaire in a month.
Yes.
Like, no, you're not.
Right.
Like, your goal can't be, I want to be able to quit my job in a month and just use this as my sole source of it. Because then you're going to fail. Right.
Mm-hmm. Or have patients like, oh my God, I want to get jacked. I'm like, that's great, but you're not going to be Mr. Universe in a month from now. That's, So something very achievable. The R in SMART stands for relevant. So that means make sure your goal is kind of aligned with your values and your long-term objectives. Okay, so don't say working out. You want to make sure you're not going to do something that's that doesn't make any sense, right? You're not going to be training for the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like you want to do a workout. That's what you're trying to do, right? You're not training for the Olympics, right? You just want to lose weight. You shouldn't be training for this. Or a bodybuilder. You're not going to be training for that, right? That wouldn't make any sense, right? It's not really. It's relevant, but not really to what your specific goal is, right? And T, which I'm a big believer in all goals, whether it's for a business or your band or your podcast, right? Is time-based, which basically means give yourself somewhat of a deadline, So PJ says, okay, I want to open up by, the middle of November, 2023, whatever it is. Giving yourself deadlines, guys, will actually keep you accountable and keep you on a pace, to achieving your goals.
And it's honestly pretty much exactly what I did here. Like, a time I knew in my mind, I needed to be open before the holiday season because I'm in a store that sells a lot of toys and a lot of collectibles. Those are Christmas gifts, right? So in my mind, I had to make sure I was open with enough time to promote that we're open before the holiday shopping season. Like that's my timely goal.
Yep.
And that keeps you on track. So I'm going to have a soft opening after New York Comic Con, which is in October, and then a grand opening right before the holiday shopping season starts. Like that's exactly what you need to do. Mm-hmm. You need to have a timely goal.
Yep, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, folks, you can Google it. Will come up SMART goals, and they're excellent. You can use it for professionally, personal goals and family goals if you want anything, all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. I guess PJ, to kind of just round things out before we wrap up, just any other advice for those who want to start a business or?
Yeah, I mean, do it. That's right, but. Like you said, make sure you have a real goal in mind, and a SMART goal is a great way to measure it. But it's a risk. It's a big risk. I am lucky, right, and blessed, if you will.
Right. Yes.
Be in a position to try this without putting myself in like just a financial pit hole for the rest of my life, right?
Right.
Is it a struggle right now? It's going to be a struggle, of course. I have to cut back on a lot of extracurricular things maybe I would normally do without having this store.
Right.
Right. So you kind of have to know, like, some of your lifestyle needs to change. You're not going on elaborate vacations.
Right.
I can't go to, I use the Star Wars hotel as an example, right?
Right.
That was like a very expensive day and a half, 2 days. And it was fine. I had no responsibility, so I was able to do it. You can't decide to have a business and have this entire just responsibility, this monkey on your back, right?
Yep.
And think you can live the same lifestyle. You got to know you want to do it. If you have the right reasons in your mind as to why you want to do it, you should 100% pursue it, but know just how much your life has to change because of it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, right? Because, I mean, this is a big financial risk. I know this.
Yeah.
And if I lose a couple bucks and I can't stay open, that would suck, but I can recover.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there are some risks way bigger than this. So, like, you got to, like, really measure the risk before you jump right in. Like, you have to know what, if everything goes wrong, right? That's the thing. Like, if everything goes wrong, can you handle that? not even on a financial level, but even on just like a mental level.
Yep.
I've put so much time and energy and effort into
Right.
setting this place up, right?
Right.
If it doesn't work out, right? And I have a positive attitude. I believe that it will. But let's say it doesn't, right? There's always right. There's always two sides of the coin, and you don't know where it's going to land. Can you handle the if you want to call it a failure? I don't think it would be a failure even if it didn't work out.
Right.
But can you handle that on a personal mental level, or is it going to just crush your soul that you put all of this energy into something you love and it didn't work out? Are you going to be a shell of a person for the rest of your life, or can you brush it off as a learning experience? And you know what I mean? Like, I think that is a huge piece. There is a lot of mental anxiety,
of course,
I've gone through just since trying to set this up. And my biggest piece of advice is, if you're a person that can't handle that, don't do it.
Yeah.
And also, like, make sure you have a good support system around you, right?
Right.
That's
you stole my thunder, PJ. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Go.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, my family has helped me so much. You know, my everyone in my family, my brother, my brother-in-law, my sister, you know, my parents, everyone, my wife, you, right? Everyone I know, like, big support system that has come here and helped me do stuff. If you don't have that, it's real hard to do something like this on your own.
No, yeah, for sure. And they kind of just piggyback off that, having support. And you know, with my last band, we recorded with these guys. They're called Cloud9 Studios, and these guys are like you. They started their own business. They built their own like hardcore, awesome studio, like basically in their backyard. They built a building. This isn't like they put in their garage. They built a building. It's immaculate. It's beautiful. They recorded Joan Jett in there, 9 days. The band, like, this place is the real deal, you know. But one of the things they said to my brother and I and the rest of the guys in the band was, you always kind of want to give someone a piece of the pie. Now, what I'm saying is that when your support systems are when someone feels that they're a part of something, they're more likely to go with you on this ride, on this roller coaster, you know. So with the band, for instance, like you know, when you work with promoters, like, oh, you know, I'll work with you. You try to give everyone a piece of the pie, piece of the action. I'll promote you, our podcast, right? We have certain special guests, right? Everyone kind of helps each other out, you know, kind of thing. And when everyone feels involved and you know, validated, whatever you want to call, everyone kind of wins, you know. But like you said, support is key. And yeah, PJ. But
and for me also, one of the most exciting parts about the whole store is, yes, the store, but it also gives us a space for the podcast. And you know, we've both put in so much time and energy into the podcast, right?
Right.
And I think just having a space here where we can utilize for more, just to expand the show, like, that's another exciting part of it. Like, it's not just gonna be a store that I can sell some toys and books out of. We now get to use this as an avenue to expand our podcast, which is really cool too.
Yeah,
really excited about being able to start that and
hell yeah,
base more. So
so yeah, folks, kids, hopefully in this educational episode of PJ and Mike. But for those who have a dream, you know, like PJ say, look, I think a part of life is fear, you know, but you can't let that fear, you know, stop you from pursuing things, you know, whether it's your business, maybe it's a girl you like or a boy you like or whatever it is, you know what I mean? It takes a little bit of confidence, you know, with anything, but, you know, having support. And at the end of the day, like you said, PJ, you got to have belief in yourself. You got to really believe in yourself, you know?
Yeah, that's what it is. You just got to, and sometimes you just got to dive right into the deep end, right?
Yep.
You know?
Exactly.
They say if you take a baby and you throw a baby into a pool, it will learn how to swim.
Right.
So, you know, I got to jump into the pool and learn how to swim.
Yep.
That's it. You know, or you throw a baby into a pool and you get arrested. So there's
right.
There's risk or reward. You don't know where it's going to be. You got to just, you got to just try.
For some reason, while we were saying this whole bit, I kept thinking of that Jiminy Cricket, Wish Upon a Star. As we
Yeah.
just this last couple of seconds, I just picture that song playing underneath it. But great stuff, PJ, and I'm very proud of you. And yeah, folks, hopefully you got something out of this episode, and let us know. Feel free to contact us.
And
Yeah.
by the time this episode drops, it should be. Let me look at the date. I think it'll be October the 12th is when this should drop based on my calendar, which is the first day of New York Comic Con. So if you're listening to this when this drops, make sure you check out the Instagram for the store, Cool Kids Comics Toys, because by that point I will have on there the information as to when the soft opening will be and the grand opening and stuff like that. So when you listen to this on the 12th, make sure you check out the other Instagram page for the store because we'll have some information about opening.
Yep, and we'll tag it too. So
We'll
those folks who are following us on Cool Kids Table, lunch table, we'll tag PJ's Cool Kids Comics and Toys. But yeah, kids, thanks for hanging out with us. And you know the deal. Same time, same table.
Have a good one, kids. Make good choices.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. Please visit PJ and Mike's website, coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com for more information. Follow the boys on all social media apps. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.